Hi, everybody. Welcome to Radio 815. I am your co-host, Matt Crandall, here as always with Marcelo Inostroza. Today we are talking about the first half of Alias Season 2. We already reviewed the season premiere, The Enemy Walks in a previous podcast. This week we're taking a look at episodes 2 through 12, which basically comprises the first half of Season 2. The episodes that we're talking about are right before the big Super Bowl sort of relaunch of the back half of Alias. So we're going to talk about the front half, the things we liked best, the episodes that we enjoyed, and just sort of the general arc that this show went on. This being the second season after being quite successful. JJ, as showrunner, didn't write as many episodes in this batch. He wrote the premiere, and then he didn't actually get writing credit on any episode that we're going to talk about today. But as always, you can feel the JJ-ness and the fingerprints are there. So, this whole season, the main through line is that Sydney's mother, Irina, is back. She is working with the CIA, and they kind of have her a little bit, and, she's not as sinister or as quick-witted as Hannibal Lecter, but the setup feels similar to that, where in these first couple episodes, Sydney and Jack go and visit her in CIA custody, and she's behind glass like Hannibal Lecter would be, and, they talk to her, and they aren't sure if they can trust her or not, but she gives them intel as Sydney goes on these missions, and the whole time, this whole arc, we're wondering, where does Irina's allegiance actually lie, and is there a greater scheme at play? Marcelo, what did you think about these first half of Alias Season 2?
The thing that I really enjoyed about this first half of Season 2, as you mentioned, now that Sydney's mother is working with the CIA, we really get a really interesting picture of the relationship between Irina and Jack. Mm-hmm. And all throughout the first half, Jack constantly, nonstop questions the validity of Irina's information that she's given to the CIA with each mission that the CIA supposedly needs her help on. Mm-hmm. And I think that does a great job of showing how much Jack, quote unquote, loved Irina, although he doesn't really say it in the course of these first half episodes, but you can clearly see that Jack has been really effed up by what Sydney's mom, right, quote unquote, Irina, did to Jack. The betrayal that Jack went through is just written all over his face when you hear him talk about Irina and try to explain to Sydney that, your mother has to have an end game. There has to be something bigger here. And I just felt really, really bad for Jack, and, just the way that he wasn't able to give, for the lack of a better word, his ex-wife, for the lack of a better word, the benefit of the doubt that her wanting to surrender to the CIA was in good faith, and it wasn't part of a bigger, grander plan that she had. Also, there's a great line in one of the earlier episodes this season where I believe it's Sydney who says it to Jack, where she says something like, "Oh my God, Mom! What Mom did to you must have been so bad that you actually lost your soul. That you can't take it. She hurt you so much that you actually lost who you were."
Yeah.
And I just thought that was a great, great, great line. Also, this season, we do find out that Jack, when Sydney was a child, Jack, for lack of a better word, didn't get the Parent of the Year award by running, illegal experiments on his child, basically finding out if his child had tendencies to serve our government. I mean, who does that to their child? Who brainwashes their child and then lies about it? I did like the way that Jennifer Garner went about really peeling back that onion about um, finding out that she got basically she was a test subject, and that Jack basically lied about that, and he basically hid it from her.
Hmm.
But the final note that I want to make here is that, despite Jack's um, untrustworthiness of Arena, there's an episode where Arena, Sydney, and Jack have to go on a mission together. And during that episode, despite Jack's inability to trust his ex-wife, or his wife, for lack of a better
Hmm.
word, you do see some moments of levity and some moments of trust developing there. And towards the end of the season, you do see that Jack is softening up a little bit to the idea of working with Arena. Although that towards the end of the season, some other developments go down with Jack to where he's really put behind the eight ball, and Vaughn and the CIA have to bail him out because he's basically become enemy number one of XD6 because of quote unquote issues, let's say. And
Yeah.
so I'm really looking forward to how that all goes down in the second half.
Yeah, so what I really liked about the Jack arc, basically, in the early episodes, he is suspicious of Arena's motives, but also he's kind of jealous when Sydney is getting closer to Arena and trusting her, and Jack, because him and Sydney have never had a good relationship, he sees this and he wants to blow it up. Literally by making it look like Arena lied to Sydney by paying off some guys to plant C4 in the episode Dead Drop, where, Jack goes out of his way to sabotage Arena, partly because he doesn't want Sydney to get hurt, but I think partly because he's jealous of this bond that she is forming with this woman that he knows, she ruined his life at some point 20 years ago. So he doesn't want to see that happen again. But then in the two-parter Passage, part 1 and part 2, directed by Ken Olin, the trio, the family gets to go on the mission, and there is a lot of levity, and that feels like a pure, like, bickering parents on a Mission Impossible mission. And so that two-parter is a ton of fun. One of the more fun, like, arcs of the series, because Jack and Sydney only have gone on a couple of missions together, but to throw that wrench of Arena into it, especially because her allegiance and where they lie throughout the two-parter is questioned, it makes for a really entertaining and, enjoyable 2 hours of TV. And then, like you say, Jack starts to be enemy number one of SD6 because they throw in Faye Dunaway as Ariana Kane investigating the murder of Emily Sloan, which is, to be honest, the storyline that for most of this season I didn't care about until episode 12, The Getaway, where finally they reveal, like, the one key twist. Because all of the stuff about Sloane's wife being dead but not being dead, and he thought he killed her but someone gave her an antidote, and then they had to pay a ransom, and I was just like, this is so convoluted. And we've already said goodbye to Emily. Sid had that nice moment at the funeral that I felt like all of that wasn't going anywhere. But then with Sloan working his ass off to pin this all on Jack and make Jack persona non grata for SD6, and then to have that final reveal in episode 12 where Sloan shows up on that island beach and Emily is there, and Sloan has been behind all of this. It just goes to show what a piece of crap Arvin Sloan truly is, where his one lifelong friend, Jack Bristow, he screws him over, even though, Jack has been a double agent, but it's unbeknownst to Sloan. So it's, kind of infuriating to see that Sloan's such a dink. I do like that. There's a couple things I really like and I really hate about this season. I like they gave Will more to do. So Bradley Cooper gets a lot more going on because he's the one who's doing work for Vaughn. He does some research. He gets the CIA test. He's going to be, an analyst, which is awesome because I think Will is great. And they put him through the ringer. But now because he knows the secret, him and Sydney have a lot of great scenes together where they can talk about it, talk about her job. But Francie really pays the price in screen time because she's completely sidelined for 90% of this first half up until I think it's episode 12 where she says like, what's going on, guys? You're always talking and then shutting up as soon as I walk in the room. And, they cover it up by throwing her a party. But that character got super sidelined for a lot of these episodes. Francie got sidelined. I felt like Dixon was barely in these because Sydney's always going on missions, with the family, or she's gone on more missions with Vaughn than she has in the past. But her and Dixon didn't have the same relationship in this first half that they did last year, and I kind of missed it. But to make up for that, she got to go on a mission with Marshall, which was one of my favorite episodes, where Marshall is just hilarious. And then there's the twist of Marshall gets kidnapped, and it's not by who they thought he was going to get kidnapped by. So I dig that. And Terry O'Quinn basically replaced, he's at the CIA as one of the higher ups, but Weiss was non-existent until episode 12. He showed up again because, Kendall was hanging out at the CIA, sort of doing all his scenes with Vaughn and with Jack, that Weiss normally, I think, would have taken over part of that role.
You mentioned that you didn't care much for Sloane's first half storyline. In the batch of episodes that we watched, I really was on the other side of that. I really enjoyed basically Sloane. What I thought, I really enjoyed seeing him being tortured.
Yeah, now, somebody messing with him.
I had no recollection that he was the one that engineered the whole thing. So when I got to the end, I was like, "You son of a bitch!" I was like, "Really? God, I was really disappointed." But I did enjoy once again up until that reveal with Emily on staying at the beach house. I did enjoy
on the Lost Island.
Yeah, I did enjoy Sloane's acting of him being tortured and basically the storyline of Sloane being blackmailed by someone.
Right.
The other thing that I want to point out here is you mentioned at the top of the show that JJ didn't do a lot of writing, as far as this first half is concerned. I noticed that too, but the other thing that I noticed and the other thing that I was happy about was, you probably know what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
A large chunk of the first half was written by my two guys, so I was thoroughly happy with that. But did you know? Well, I don't know if you noticed this, Matt, but their executive producer credits were switched around halfway through the run. I don't know if Marcy did this or if her partner did this, but in the first episode that they wrote together in the season, Alex's name was on top of Bob's name, and then in the next episode that they wrote together, it was reversed. Also, did you notice that under Alex had a third?
Kurtzman counter.
Yeah, I was like, what? I was like, what is that? I've always wondered what the hell that's about, because now to go a little bit off track here. Sorry, guys. Now everything that Alex has done, he's always been uh, uh, you know,
Alex
you know,
Kurtzman.
thank you so much. I, I freaking froze on that. He's always been Alex Kurtzman. He like, I've only seen him as Alex Counter in this thing, and I'm like, what the hell is that from? I'm like, what does that mean? I was like, what did he have a third like halfway through the season? Did he come to the editors and say, listen, I want you to add my third name in there, or what was that all about? I don't.
So I looked it up briefly because I was wondering what was up, because he was born Alexander Kurtzman, but his wife's name is Samantha Counter.
Oh.
So I guess he was trying to be like progressive, and he took his wife's last name, and then partway through, I don't know if they're still together or not, but maybe he just decided at some point, nah, it's just easier, especially when he wanted to make, a career as a director and stuff.
Right.
It's just easier to have a shorter name, right? It confuses people if it's too long.
Yeah, no, I was really, really intrigued about that. And to be honest, I was hoping that you were going to dig that up, and I'm so happy you did. Because I was like, what the hell is that all about? The last thing that I'll say about this season that I enjoyed very, very much, and I don't know how you feel about this, but in the first season of Alias, I really didn't like the actor who played Sark. I basically boiled him up to being a British bad guy who didn't have that much. I thought that he didn't have much to him.
Right.
But with him basically hatching a plot to kill Sloane, and then with and then him basically joining XD6 and working with Sloane.
Yeah.
I've really grown to like him in his sleaziness. He's once again, I don't know who the actor is, but the way that the actor plays it, I think that his charisma for some reason just hit me more in the second season than it did in the first.
And I thought they gave more to do. David Anders as Sark got to be, a little bit more surly and have a lot more story to work with. And I always thought that he's like a really fun, you just love to hate him kind of bad guy. Mm-hmm. Now at this point, he's still like kind of playing by the rules, but he becomes a bit of a bigger jerk as we go, but in like a charming way. And I think that actor did a really good job with it, so much so that he just was on iZombie for 5 years playing Blaine, who was basically like a cut and dried version of Sark as a zombie, because he was, charismatic, but also an evil dick. And I really like that guy. He's great. And I did think that episode where, Vaughn gets exposed to the virus and Sydney has to go and get the counter agent, and Sark says like, haha, I gotcha. And she's trapped, and he makes her do that deal where we think that he's going to kill Sloane, was one of my favorite episodes, because it was fun to see Sydney do this mission that the stakes are so high where she's got to save Vaughn. And I think that in the episodes leading up to this, they've really strengthened Sydney and Vaughn's dynamic. They've given them more to do. They've fleshed out Vaughn. They've told us about his girlfriend, and, Sydney has confessed that she has feelings for Vaughn. So I really liked that they put her in that situation, but then they team her up with Sark, and it's like, oh no, she's got to work with the enemy, but they're going to capture her enemy. But then you're like, but where's the other shoe going to drop, and what's it going to be? And then it's when she shows up to work the next day and Sloane is not dead and Sark now works at SD6, and you're like, what the hell is behind this? Like, what is this guy's end game? So I thought that was fun, that we were still guessing like what is actually at play with those characters. The one thing that kind of gets me a little bit down is that the Rambaldi stuff was so interesting and out there in season 1, and it's basically shelved. Like, they barely mention Rambaldi in this first half of the season, and they added that weird Jason Bourne Treadstone Sydney was trained to be a spy as a child kind of thing that I don't necessarily dig. I didn't really love that idea. It didn't seem like, something that felt like pure JJ. It felt like ripped from something else and just thrown into Alias, whereas the Rambaldi, prophecy and all that, I'm more into that slightly supernatural weirdness that we didn't get a lot of in these episodes.
I find myself caring less about the overall mystery box of the Rambaldi thing. I find myself caring more about Sydney and her relationship with her parents at this point.
Yeah, and I think that's the intent, is that this first half is about the family dynamic and how that can change, and can you win back the trust that is, non-existent from the get-go.
Mm-hmm. Also, I do want to mention that in that episode where Vaughn becomes infected, when Sydney goes to see him, the piece of music that they use, the song that they use is so great that I actually looked it up and I put it in my one of my playlists on YouTube Music. I liked it so much. I just think that was a great piece of music that Michael chose to use. And speaking of Michael, I thought
what was the song? What was the do you know like the name of it?
I don't have it on hand, but I will send it to you. I have it here.
It's fine. Don't worry about it. Keep going. Talk about Michael Giacchino's awesome score.
Unlike well, I know in season 1 you were kind of on the fence. You didn't really like the techno music aspect of the show in season 1. But I do think that Michael really has picked up his game in season 2. Yeah. And I think that season 2 sounds more, forgive the example here, but it's apt, especially when talking about Alias. I think that season 2 sounds, it's more of a mission, a sounding score than season 1 was. Season 1 to me was a little bit more like electronic in some points.
Yeah.
Which I didn't mind, but clearly you did. And I really think that the music has gotten so much better this season. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I thought Giacchino's work got better as the first season went on, and this season has been particularly strong because there still is that electronic techno element sometimes, but there's a lot more classical sort of themes weaving their way through, and I really enjoyed the music. Worked a lot better for the situations, I felt, whereas those first couple of episodes, it just felt like hip electronic music for no reason, but now it's part of the Alias aesthetic, so I'm used to it.
The thing that I like about Alias is even after you watch a bunch of episodes, and clearly we watched a bunch of episodes.
Yeah.
I like I said at the beginning of Alias when we started covering it. When it comes to JJ stuff, this is like the black hole of his filmography that I have, and I have no idea where we're going or what's basically coming.
Right.
And I think that's a wonderful feeling, but I feel kind of unprepared because you probably have an idea of where we're going, and I don't. So I'm very, very happy about not knowing, but I'm kind of nervous.
Yeah. Because
the show has been really, really solid so far, and I know it goes off a cliff.
Yeah.
But I don't. What I don't want to happen is I don't want it to go off a cliff just yet.
Right. Well, and it doesn't. So like, just to give a small like preview of where Alias is heading. This season, really good. There's a couple of things they do in season 3 that drove me crazy, but it's just as like a fan, you knew that they had to throw a few wrenches in like TV style to stop certain things from happening, but it's like season 4 and part of 5 where you're just like, ugh. There's a few things that they try that don't feel at home in the Alias universe. And those are also the seasons where JJ was not the showrunner and he turned the show over and was just a little bit too busy. And I think he just said, like, go do what you want. And they wanted to get a little bit weird and add like a few things too many. It was like everything in the kitchen sink when it was like, well, the things that I gave you were working so well. Why did you throw in so much stuff that we didn't need? But we're still like quite a few episodes away from that. And, you know, the thing I do like about this first half is that it still has that every time an episode ends, it's like ends at like the worst possible moment where you're like, oh my God, I gotta watch the next one like right now. Which is nice that they could still keep up like these cliffhangers and continuations that make you want to keep watching, because this was basically near the start of bingeable TV. And it was not something that every show on a major network like ABC was capable of.
One problem that I find myself having as I've gone through JJ's filmography, and this is really no fault of Alias or no fault of Lost or no fault of Fringe, but one problem that I've always had with JJ as a creative force, and that I have with some other of my favorite writers, I don't like the fact, I find it really annoying that he hops around. Like he starts something, but he doesn't stick around.
And then he gets a shiny new toy and moves on, right?
Yeah, I don't like look, I get it. I understand. Look, if I was in his position, and if I create a show, I'm going to drive that child into the ground either.
Yeah, right until the wheels fall off.
Yeah, as me as a writer, I'm going to ride my show until either it flies or the wheels fall off. I am not the type. If I create a show, I'm going to stick with it. I'm not going to create the shiny new toy and when somebody buys me something else, I'm not going to drop it, right? Mm-hmm. So like I said, that has nothing to do with Alias, but that has something to do with JJ as a creative force. And since this is a podcast about his material and his career, how do you feel about JJ doing that with not only Alias, as he clearly does, but with his other work? How do you feel about the fact that he starts off excellent things, but he has this tendency of leaving his projects to go and do something else? How do you feel about that as a fan of his?
It is frustrating. Now, you know, like when he did Alias and he was the showrunner and he, you know, head writer and all this stuff, and then it's successful and he passes it on to his buddies while he goes to do something else, and he kicks off Lost in grand fashion and he's producing a lot of other stuff. It's frustrating. Like, I get it when he starts to direct movies that, you know, now in 2020, the divide between movie and TV is so slim. But in 2005, you know, being a TV guy or being a movie guy, it felt like a big difference. You know what I mean? In notoriety and probably paycheck and power and all that kind of thing. So I understand why, you know, Mission Impossible 3 came out in 2006, so they probably were working on it from 2004 and beyond. So JJ's working on Alias, doing the pilot of Lost, and he gets a call from Tom Cruise. I kind of get why he would say, oh, I'm going to step away from these things that I've created and I'm going to focus on this other thing. But it is really frustrating because you want him, because he's so good when he's on and he's thought it out, that you want him to see it through. Which, of course, as everyone famously now, the whole Star Wars thing comes down to the same issue, right?
Yeah.
He launched the new Star Wars, He passed it off to somebody else, thinking he wasn't going to have to see it through. Then when he came back for the third, had to retool everything, and it made no one happy. Because it's like, oh, if only one guy had planned out the roadmap for this entire trip, it would feel more cohesive instead of, like we got 4 different navigators and nobody can agree where we're heading.
I don't mean to make it sound that I'm trashing on JJ. I'm not. But I'm just I am so frustrated with his working style.
And as a fan, I think it's perfectly valid for you to feel that way, right?
Yeah, I like for example, when I go into a JJ project, I know that he's gonna be there for a while, but then he's gonna leave. Right. It's like I know he's gonna do that, but that's neither here nor there. Listen, guys, I'm really sorry for going off on that tangent, but I really enjoyed the first half of Alias season 2 because I loved the family dynamic between Sydney, Arena, and Jack. And I loved that subplot that Sloan came up with. And I was really pissed, like I said, I was really pissed that was just him.
Mm-hmm.
But if I had to really rate this first half, I would give it a solid 7. I really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'd give it a 7 as well. And I would say the only reason is that some of it starts to feel a little bit repetitive. And, I love the family dynamic, but there were a few things that they didn't do that I wish they had done, and a few things that they did that I didn't necessarily love. But as we're heading into this second half, we'll talk more next week. The next episode, the big Super Bowl episode, is the one that blows everything up and says, we know that this show was starting to feel a little bit, plot-wise going through the motions. Bam, we've revamped the whole thing. So next week, when we talk about the back half of this season, or most of the back half, we definitely will have a lot to talk about because there's a big shift coming up in Alias next week. So if you want to get in touch with us, if you have any questions, hit us up on Twitter with hashtag Radio815. If we ever see anything on there, we will shout it out on the show and answer any questions or feedback. If you want to get in touch with me, also on Twitter, @Matt Crandall is the best spot to do it. Marcelo, where can the people reach you?
Yeah, well, guys, if you want to get in touch with me and tell me how much of an idiot I am for holding JJ to such high standards, you can also get in touch with me on Twitter. I'm at Twitter, and my handle is CreekFanatic88.
All right, so that is the first half of Alias Season 2. Next week, we will be taking a look at episodes 13 through 21. We will save the big explosive finale for its own episode. So we appreciate you tuning in. We appreciate you listening. If you like the show, tell your friends, and we will see you next time. Take care.